What's going on, guys? Chunky back here on my channel. I'm back today for one of the toughest reviews I've ever done, especially on my channel. I'm here to review the last piece of a 40-year-old saga. This is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So just talking about this film, I'm very aware of all the negative or mixed reviews, I should say. People aren't necessarily enjoying this film. I've heard of the, the complaints about overused fan service and an incredibly rushed plot and a few lingering questions after the finale. But I must say, I do see a lot of it, but I enjoyed this film. Let me preface this review by saying this is in no way, shape or form my favourite Star Wars film. It's not the best Star Wars film. I don't think anyone is ever going to come out of the cinema thinking that. But for Star Wars fans like myself, or I should say me personally, because there are a lot of Star Wars fans that are pissed off with this, I'm happy with the way this franchise ended. I think this could not have ended any other way. Now, I'm going to jump into the plot, but I want to keep it simple as possible because there are so many questions being answered at breakneck speed that are important and relevant to this plot. It's really hard to describe. So as you can see from the trailer, Emperor Palpatine has returned, so Rey, Finn, Poe and the gang have to gear up and go and stop Palpatine. That is really the plot in a nutshell, and I won't really say much more than that because anything else I say that's relevant is pretty much a spoiler in my eyes. Now, first I'm actually going to start with the negatives. So like I said before, I do agree with the flaws of this film. Firstly, the plot. This film is incredibly rushed, but when I say that, it's sort of a catch-22, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but when I say the plot is rushed, I also think they needed to squeeze this much into the film. There were a lot of lingering questions, and there were a lot of plot holes that were created in The Last Jedi, a lot of unresolved issues and plot points that we wanted to see answered here. So I feel like everything is getting answered, but we're trying to cram so much shit into this film that it actually affects the pacing. It is to the detriment of how fast this film goes, because it goes fast. And secondly, for someone like myself that actually enjoyed The Last Jedi, I did think this was a bit of a middle finger to The Last Jedi. It is pretty much trying to retcon every issue of The Last Jedi while being a faithful sequel to The Force Awakens. I get it's a J.J. Abrams thing. I like him as a director. People don't like him because apparently he's just never been able to end anything. I get it. But at the same time, there wasn't really much I didn't enjoy as far as the pacing was concerned. What is here is funny and charming and entertaining. I wasn't bored. And secondly, a lot of people think that the film leaves a few questions. There are a couple unanswered questions, sure, but it answers a lot more than it leaves. So for that, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And the last negative, this is sort of a crossover where I sort of meet the fans, but I sort of stand apart about the overused fan service. There are a few characters in this film that are purely there for fan service. They don't really have too much of an impact on the plot, but when they appear, they're talking about the good old days and how things used to be and how Star Wars is and how Star Wars should be. And I get that it's sort of overused in parts because you sort of get their intent and get why they're there, but I also think it's incredibly charming. There is nothing wrong with wanting to feel nostalgic about a 40-year-old franchise. I think J.J. Abrams put a little bit too much on his shoulders when trying to make this film, and because this film is trying at breakneck speed to answer all those questions of The Last Jedi and fill in all those fan servicey moments from the past 40 years essentially, there is a little bit too much in one film. It feels a bit crammed and it feels a bit congested. I think at the end of the day, I'm probably going to just give my opinion now. For those of you that sort of want my score, my rating, it is a solid watch. And I haven't given any more positives. And I'm going to wrap it up now for this reason. It's a solid watch because it looks great. The effects are great. The acting has some charm. There are some genuine emotional moments from a lot of our characters. There is some really good choreography here. There are some really good space battles. This very much feels like a war in the stars. I don't feel like this feels out of place in relation to the original trilogy. The prequel trilogy is a different set of films altogether because it's taking place in an entirely different era. even though it is very much in tune with those original films, both in tone and progression. A lot of the characters share some of the similar arcs, but that's not such a bad thing. Feeling nostalgic and reminding us what was good about Star Wars isn't such a bad thing, and I know the excuse that we can always go back and watch those films, but this is in every way a homage to those original films. And I know that people said The Force Awakens was very much a rip-off of A New Hope, but it was a homage because characters like Rey were different. She is not Luke. She doesn't become Luke. The journey she goes through now isn't actually Luke's journey. There are a lot of different characters. Poe didn't become Han. Finn didn't become Leia or anything like that. There was actually relevant, independent arcs for characters we hadn't seen before. So tying up those stories is satisfying to me. And I get that it's not amazing. This film didn't blow me away. But I get really upset when people come out of the cinema with such passion that they want to call this film outright garbage. I think it's just a bit excessive, and I think we need to chill out. Now, it's sort of a hodgepodge, this review. I'm not really going to talk about specific moments because I just don't want to spoil it. However, I do want to get deeper into this film. I think this film, it's probably not the best in the trilogy. I personally would put The Last Jedi above this because of how divisive and different it is in relation to the rest of the saga, but I would put it on par with The Force Awakens. If you enjoyed The Force Awakens, if you're okay with the pacing and the issues and the questions raised and the way the narrative develops, I think you would enjoy this. I never number my movies. I never number them. But if you must know, to put it into perspective, I would give The Force Awakens a 7, I would give The Last Jedi an 8, and I would give this a 7. So that's why I say it's on par in terms of scoring and tone and overall quality. It's a lot safer than The Last Jedi was, but I was happy with the ending. The last shot of this film is fantastic, like the very last shot. That said, the last shot of this film says so much about what Star Wars is and who it's for, about the multiple generations, about the fact that Star Wars was made for children, the fact that we've all grown with Star Wars, and Star Wars is for more than just the one specific fan. There are so many stories in this world, and this world is so dense that we always want these questions answered, because deep down inside somewhere there always is an answer for these questions. But I also think that Star Wars should be left with a hint of mystery. This world should be left with a hint, with a sort of sign that there is a little bit more to discover, there is a little bit more to think about and question and discuss. And even though this film answers a lot of those questions, it leaves a lot less to discuss. I'm okay with the way this ended, but I also do think that you are never going to end a franchise, a saga this iconic and impactful. You're never going to end it on such a high note, because you can't please all these different fans. You can't please the different age groups. You can't please the fans that are fans of different genres. You know, the more Western grounded feel of the original 3 films, and the more sci-fi, extravagant, choreographed, you know, nature of the prequels, to the very flashy and very fast-paced nature and divisive nature of the newer films. I just think there are too many fans, too many age groups, too many fans of different genres. There are too many reasons why a lot of Star Wars fans jumped onto the universe, then explored those multiple films in different ways. And if you go through people's, you know, top Star Wars, top, 5 Star Wars films, or people put their Star Wars films in order, which I've been seeing a lot of lately, I've been very surprised to find what sits at the top. A lot of people do find, those original films like A New Hope and Empire at the very top, but then I see like Solo, like the Solo Star Wars story movie somewhere in the middle, and I see Rise of Skywalker below it. But then for some people, Rise of Skywalker is like their 4th or 5th favorite Star Wars film. People put Rogue One at the bottom. There are just so many ways you can latch onto this universe, and I think that's something to be proud of. I don't think it's something to be upset about, because the fact that Star Wars is so different and divisive and so just age-old, like traditional, I guess, in terms of film, because we've got something that's ingrained in film culture in the original trilogy. We've got something that's so, progressive for the time and divisive in the prequel trilogy. Now we've got something that's some people would consider very safe and very sort of minimal in the new trilogy. I think there's a lot of reasons why people are upset, but I think even though they're all justified, I think you could never avoid that. I think that when we talk about Star Wars, we're not just talking about one specific thing. We're talking about 40 years of film culture and iconic moments. And I appreciate all of them in their own little ways, and I definitely appreciate some less than others because I don't like the prequel films. But at the same time, I thought that this is a really good ending to a saga that's trying to balance heaps of fans, but trying to introduce kids into a new era of Star Wars. I mean, this film does a lot right. I get the issues, but I just don't feel so affected and hurt by them. I don't think this film ruined the saga or ruined people's childhood. You know, people say George Lucas ruined my childhood. George Lucas invented Star Wars. Like, what do you want? He made the first film. People love the first film. Like, I get that he has a lot to show for it. Like, later on, I guess that there's a lot of faults in the original in the prequel trilogy. But I don't know. Like, I just think we're getting a bit too excessive with not our opinions. Like, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I think we're getting a bit too excessive about what we expect in a Star Wars film. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And I'm not saying this film blew me away. But I'm just saying this film deserves a bit more credit than it's receiving. And I want to take a few moments, and a few days, I should say, to really ponder this and really just think about if my thoughts would sort of ease off or become a bit harsher, or I would see things that I didn't see. But I am going to, I know I've gone already a little bit in depth. I've sort of given you a sample of what I aim to give in my next video, but I really want to delve into the Star Wars saga as it stands, the complete 9 episodes, and really focus on the rise of Skywalker and how it ties into a lot of the tropes, genres, and ideas that were raised and developed in those original and prequel films for a lot of reasons that people actually might enjoy. Now, I'm not defending this film. I think that everyone defends a Star Wars film that the rest of the public might not enjoy as much. And I think a lot of the Star Wars films hold that sort of position, that they're not really amazing in their own right, but we just make excuses for the ones that we love. And I just think this is no different. I think that this is going to be the favorite film for the younger generations, and then they're going to make excuses and try and justify exactly why this is the best. I'm not saying I'm doing it for this film. I'm just saying that we do it for all of them, so this shouldn't be treated differently. I understand there is a lack of quality in terms of pacing and overall development and direction, but I do think this film just it feels right. It feels like it sits. It's probably not the one we deserve. There's probably a better Star Wars film woven, a more focused, developed Star Wars film somewhere in this plot. But what we got isn't necessarily a letdown too. I think we just need to chill. And therefore, I'm glad the series is over. So if you missed it halfway through this review, this film is most definitely a solid watch. And I thank you for sticking around for the second half. And I hope that you do agree. I know a lot of people do. I've made a few posts about it so far. So it seems like there are a few people out there that agree with my opinion that it isn't amazing, but it's not terrible either. And that's something to be admired, especially when ending and wrapping up such an important series of films like the Star Wars saga. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I hope you liked the video. If you did, leave a like down below. If you've got something to say about this film or the Star Wars saga in general, or how it ended, or how it stands to this very day, comment down below. And if you love my content, guys, please subscribe and hit that bell button to stay updated with all my future content. Thank you very much. I love you all. I've been Chunky. Thanks for stopping by my world. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. See ya.